You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions, ep060. And now, here are Craig and Jeff.
It's Thanksgiving, and that means it's the perfect time to be thankful that this is an audio-only podcast, or the sight of our ugly faces would surely be enough to drive every single one of you insane. We are your heinous hosts, Jeff Hewlett.
And Craig Cohen. And hey, speak for yourself, man.
Hey, listen, man, I'm being kind. I could have told him what we really look like.
I think we both look fine, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for that vote of confidence, but yeah, we'll leave that up to the listeners. Where our faces are on our Facebook page if you guys want to go take a look at what we actually look like. But I thought it would be kind of funny to liken us to the Medusans, since we're going to be covering Is There in Truth No Beauty today on Tricorder Transmissions.
And hey, before you mentioned Facebook, and it just reminded me, before we get into our proper introduction, we got a really nice message.
We did.
On Facebook. And I wasn't prepared to talk about this, so do you have it handy?
No, but I could probably pull it up for you.
Yeah, I think the guy's name was Mark.
Yeah, hold on a minute. I'll pull it up. So yeah, you keep the audience engaged.
Yeah. So I mean, we love unsolicited communications, and woke up over the weekend to find a message in our Tricorder Transmissions Facebook message folder. It's a shared folder between the two of us, and it was just a really, really nice message saying how he had rediscovered the show, and through that had discovered us.
Yeah.
And he was really enjoying both the original series and our commentaries on it. So
yeah,
it really made me feel good to read that, and it's always good to find people who are rediscovering classic Trek.
It is. His name is Michael Martin.
Martin, okay.
Hello, Michael. You can getting a shout out on the show, and this is really cool because I've known other people in my lifetime who were not Trek fans necessarily, and were introduced to Trek through the movies, the original series movies, and most notably, Wrath of Khan usually is enough to get people interested in Trek who are not necessarily interested in Trek, because I maintain that may be one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. And, taking Trek out of the equation completely, if you don't know Trek at all and you watch that movie, you don't really even have to know Trek. It's just a great movie all around if you're a sci-fi fan. So he watched Wrath of Khan, and that prompted him, of course, to watch Space Seed, which, sets up Wrath of Khan, and that kind of set him off on an original series binge, and he's been listening to our show, and as of the 22nd of November, he had gotten through the Tribble Super Panel, which I think is a great episode of ours.
Yes.
Features some awesome friends that have been on the show many times since then, and he's been listening to our show, and I don't know how long it's going to take him to catch up to this episode, but hopefully when he listens to this, sometime in the future, he'll hear us talking about the message he sent back at the end of November of 2014.
Yeah. So big thanks there, and thank you to everybody who either supports us even by just listening to the show, or extends greetings to us via Facebook or Twitter. It really I know it makes me feel really, really good to get that kind of feedback, because it makes it feel like we're providing more than just what we set out to do, which was to sit down and for me and you, Jeff, to just really talk Trek with each other.
Yeah. No, I will kind of reiterate your comments a little bit there and say, see our download numbers, and the people that we actually get to engage with that listen to our show is much smaller than the actual download numbers. So we know the rest of you are out there, and we appreciate that every one of you downloads our episodes consistently. Our numbers usually don't fluctuate much. They stay really, really consistent. And so we know that a lot of you listen every week, and we really appreciate that. And it really keeps us motivated and keeps us going. And it's great to know that, our voices and our thoughts and our Trek talk reaches people that we probably will never speak to. And I know that it's kind of humbling for me.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's one of those things that reminds me of how great the internet is in terms of really making the world a lot smaller.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very profound thought. And that's true. We're fortunate to be around, living in the time that we're living in, where our voices can be broadcast across a global network and reach just about anybody. So
yeah,
this is fantastic. So are you ready for a little bit of Trek news?
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've talked any Trek news, huh?
It has. I'm kind of jonesing for it.
Yeah. So a couple of interesting little tidbits. There's not a lot of news, but a couple things that really stuck out. One, and there's a lot of Shatner stuff going on here with this little bit of news. And so Mr. Shatner will be appearing in a beloved sci-fi series that has been running on the Sci-Fi Channel for a while now.
Right. I read a quick blurb about this, Haven.
Yeah, that's Stephen King's Haven, based on a Stephen King story. And he's going to be in a 4-episode story arc playing a pivotal character that will have a lasting impact even after he is gone. And it's going to be airing hopefully in the second half of the 5th season sometime in 2015.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I must confess that I've never watched the show, but Shatner being on it, of course, is going to be enough to get me to tune in.
Yeah, same here. It's funny because I read the novella that Haven was based on. It was a story called Colorado Kid.
Yep.
And I remember reading it, and it's kind of very un-Stephen King-like. It's not a horror novel. It's kind of if I remember correctly, it's like a newspaper reporter sort of cutting her teeth in a small Maine town. The main part is, I guess, very, very Stephen King-ish. But it looks like the show itself really, sort of expanded beyond that, the initial idea of the story. So, hopefully we can catch up with the show before it airs, so we sort of have a slight idea of what's going on. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll be able to talk about it here on the show during our intros, and let the audience know that what we think of it.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of looking forward to it. I love seeing Shatner on television. I've been watching his show on the DIY network.
Oh, the one where they're remodeling his house.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's very boilerplate reality show. They kind of manufacture drama.
Yeah.
And come up with these bizarre issues that they have to deal with. But it's great to see Shatner acting like just regular old Shatner, in his own home area with his wife, and they're going room by room and remodeling the outside, and it's neat to hear him talk. He has such a funny way about him, and he's acting as if he's almost like this difficult guy.
Yeah.
And they were having some trouble with the architect, the designer, and they had this whole drama where they were gonna, that she kind of disappointed them with her initial designs, and they were gonna fire her if she didn't bring in a better second round. And it's pretty standard reality TV, but it's Shatner, so
yeah, sure,
you kind of have to enjoy it. Let's see, what else do we have going on here? Oh, Shatner again. Shatner has a Kickstarter for a new book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This one, I saw a headline on it, and I didn't have a chance to click and see what it was about. I wasn't sure if it was a documentary or what. So it's a book.
Yeah, it's kind of it's called Catch Me Up, and it's aimed at senior citizens and teaching them how to use their the skill sets they've built up in their life experience to create business opportunities.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I've heard this. I've heard this concept being done for 20 somethings
Yeah.
in the past. So a guy who's successful in business will have a seminar for early 20s college kids to get them into entrepreneurial life. And so I guess Shatner is kind of going in the opposite direction and teaching his life skills to seniors so that they can feel more viable and start businesses later in life, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Do any of the rewards levels involve his signature?
Yeah, I'm kind of browsing through them now. Let's see. The campaign has a goal of $50,000. I don't think Shatner really needs $50,000, but I don't know. And they have the standard old tropes of they don't want to go through a standard publisher. He's encouraging people, to donate so that they feel more attached, and
Yeah.
he's going to use the techniques to. Let's see. Let's look at the reward levels here. Let's kind of scroll down through, and now you got the standard $1, and Shatner thanks you, and let's see. Let's go to some of the higher pledge levels and see what you get. So if you pledge $10,000,
oh goodness,
you get the Captain's Chair VIP package. So you will have your very own table for you and 5 friends at the Shatner Charity Gala. Meet Shatner in person, get a photo, get your book signed. Oh, so this is just a little more expensive than the convention. And you get your book signed. So I guess technically you get an autograph. Estimated delivery of June 2015. Oh, if you pledge $5,000, which 3 people have, you get 2 VIP tickets for the Catch Me Up book signing party to meet Shatner in person. That's pretty cool. So you and a friend will join Shatner at the VIP event held in Northern California Winery in 2015, location to be determined. And
Travel
2 copies of it. Yeah. You traveled. It doesn't say that, but that's implied.
Yeah.
So you get 2 copies of the hardback, paperback, and digital formats of the book, some t-shirts and wristbands, whatever the wristbands are. Let's see. $2K. No one's contributed $2K yet, but you get a handwritten thank you note from Shatner.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of cool. Suitable for framing. It's denoted there. Yeah, from the captain himself, along with a hardback and limited edition copy of the book. Let's see. $1,000. 1 backer at $1,000. Your personal story featured on CatchMeUp.com and CNN.com.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There's somebody doing a little promoting for themselves.
Yeah. So you get your story featured on the website. It's pretty cool. 500 bones gets you an autographed copy of the limited edition version of the book. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Signed by Shatner himself. Let's see. 300 bones gets you an autographed copy. That's about it. So kind of similar to the $500, but it's a regular copy, not the limited edition copy. Don't know what the difference is. I have to read through a little bit more and find out. $250 still gets you an autographed copy of the paperback. So $50 more, get the hardcover. That's probably worth it. Yeah, then we go down a little bit more. Well, you still get... All right, that's a little bit strange. $65 gets you the hardback book and t-shirt combo, but not autographed.
Yeah, well, that's just showing how much value there is in his signature.
Yeah,
I was seeing if this would be a way to get his signature without paying those convention prices.
Doesn't appear so, Craig. Doesn't appear so.
Shucks.
60 bones, you can get the limited edition hardback copy of the book, but without a t-shirt. And the Kickstarter is a Kickstarter only edition with a serial number. All right. So, and then you got a bunch of little smaller ones where you can get smaller pledge levels where you can get t-shirts, digital copies of the book, paperback copies of the book. They have a ridiculously large amount of pledge levels from this one, from $1 all the way up to $10,000.
I like that. I think most successful Kickstarters, or at least the unsuccessful Kickstarters I've seen, have had like 4 levels, and the jump is huge between like $25 and then $300.
Well, as of today,
yeah.
Let's see. as of today, we are talking. They're looking for 50,000. They've got 22,340, with 55 days to go.
Oh, he'll hit it.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, January 19th of 2015 is the end of this Kickstarter. So if you're interested, you have some time, but you could get into it anytime between now and January 19th.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, let's see what else we've got here. So Shatner again. Apparently Mr. Shatner has an idea for the 2016 50th anniversary of Star Trek. He was speaking at a Wizard World convention in Oklahoma, and he wants to produce and direct a 50th anniversary show that contains segments on the ideas the series created and how the show influenced people's lives. I think that's a good idea.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. I mean, I think Star Trek, we've talked to so many people on this show who have talked about how Star Trek has influenced their lives, and both of us have talked about it, how it influenced our lives. And, you know, I think we both know other people who are Trek fans or even casual Trek watchers who've been affected by the show. This sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope he can pull this off. I would be interested in watching it. I wonder if at the convention in Vegas in 2015, if he'll mention it.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be there.
You'd think he would.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good place to mention it. I'm sure a lot of people there would buy into it immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's about it for the news, unless you have anything.
No, that's it, man.
All right. You ready to jump on in?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Is There in Truth No Beauty first aired on October 18th of 1968. Remaster, March 22nd, 2008.
All right. And for a quick rundown, a beautiful woman escorts an alien ambassador so hideously ugly that the sight of him can drive a human insane.
It kind of looks like we do.
You're back to that again.
Well, we got to go full circle before we start up.
Yeah.
So here we go. We are starting our scene-specific commentary in 3, 2, 1.
So, Jeff, this is kind of a milestone for us, right?
Yeah, episode number 60.
Yeah, awesome. And it starts with a tremendous shot of the Enterprise from underneath.
Yeah, and Kirk is giving us a rundown of the basic plot of the show. So we're hearing about the Medusans, and the sight of just looking at a Medusan would drive you crazy. And we're getting the whole mission to take the Medusan ambassador on board and transfer them to Medusan space. So you're getting the whole rundown ahead of time. Interesting, you don't usually get that kind of setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is an interesting episode in the sense that it was one of a handful of episodes of the series that was written by a non-professional TV writer.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm gonna totally destroy this name, but a woman by the name of Jean Lizette Arroest, born in 1932. She had no prior TV writing credits, and she also wrote for this series All Our Yesterdays.
All right.
And prior to her work on Star Trek, she worked as an acquisition librarian at the Harvard University Library.
Cool.
And then went on to work as the head of references and collection development at Princeton University Library.
Wow, down the street from me.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So that might speak to some of the unorthodox stuff that happens in this episode.
Yeah, that does kind of help clarify things a little bit. And we've seen Spock strap on a visor. Interestingly enough, we've heard that the sight of the Medusans will drive a human insane, and apparently the goggles that Spock is wearing, or the visor that Spock is wearing, is enough to prevent the sight of said Medusan that happens to be in some sort of an intergalactic cat carrier.
Yes.
I thought it was kind of interesting that the Medusan is in this carrier, so you would wonder why Spock would need to put the goggles on at all. And Dr. Jones as well, who just beamed aboard with the Medusan. Why would she need the goggles if the Medusan is safely contained in the intergalactic cat carrier.
I wonder if it's just, a precaution in case the transporter gets silly.
Oh, perhaps, or I guess maybe they just need to establish that plot point. But I wanted to mention while we're in the opening credit sequence of this for me, I know you have a whole stereo setup in your living room, but this is the first time that I've watched one of the Blu-ray Trek episodes on my computer. And my computer is hooked up to my good stereo system where my living room television just has the speakers. This is the first time I've watched one of the Blu-ray remastered episodes on an actual sound system.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, these Blu-rays sound really good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I know you've heard them this way every time you've watched them, but for me, this was the first time. And I was really impressed with the score for this episode. And of course, the opening theme sounds nice and bassy.
Yeah.
So I was very happy with that. And everybody out there, if you've never watched these Blu-rays on any sort of a good system, a sound system, it's worth seeking one out because these scores sound beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. Last week we were talking with Mark Cushman about the These Are the Voyages Volume 3 Kickstarter, and he talked about the film clips that are part of one of the rewards levels. And he said that there was a time when you'd look at those film clips and they'd look better than what you saw on TV.
Yep.
And that really speaks to the fact that these Blu-rays are really showcasing what was going on set. And granted, the audio is probably getting a lot of artificial help. Mm-hmm. So we're not really hearing so much what they were anticipating or planning in the 60s. But still, this format really, really speaks to the fact that, broadcast standards weren't caught up to production standards.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think we've mentioned on the show before how great the Blu-rays look. And, I can't stress enough how many people I've talked to who were around, when Trek was originally on TV or an early syndication who've agreed with that and been blown away by the color and the clarity of the Blu-ray. So definitely worth seeking them out if you don't already own them.
Yeah, totally.
Great stuff. I love that we have a repurposed Nomad maglock type carrying device that's been attached to the container that has Ambassador Kolos in it.
Oh, right.
Yeah. A lot of really interesting camera work in this episode.
Yeah. And this is not a new Trek director. This is Ralph Sinesky doing the last of 6 episodes that he directed. We last saw his work on Bread and Circuses. And after this episode, he moved on after directing some good episodes.
Oh, good for him. Good for him. Something else significant about this episode, and this is significant to me personally, there are 2 sound bites taken from this episode, 2 dialogue bits from Captain Kirk that wound up being used in the Captain Kirk audio-enabled captain's chair model that I have sitting on my desk.
Ah, okay.
The first one was from a scene that we just saw where he says, "Lieutenant Uhura, open a channel to all decks."
Yeah. That
is built in to that chair. When you press the little control button on the side, Kirk says a myriad of different phrases, that being one of them. And later on, there is another quote I'll point out when we get to it, where Kirk asks for, I think, a status report from Mr. Spock. But I thought it was kind of cool that 2 bites were lifted directly from this episode. I didn't realize it until I rewatched it for this podcast.
That's very neat. And we have a Spock meeting Kolos face to face, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess we understand that the Medusans are kind of maybe an ethereal entity that's kind of light and a different imagery, some almost psychedelic looking imagery.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback by that a little bit because I don't know how you could call that ugly. They keep making mention of the fact that the Medusans are so ugly, it drives people insane. And I don't necessarily think that a cluster of lights that flash different colors would be able to be considered ugly.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sure. Maybe from a script standpoint, they were intended to look different, because I know that when that effect was added in post, and the director was not consulted
Oh, okay.
on what it should look like. So perhaps it was supposed to be some sort of an alien being inside that box, and maybe not the lights, but kind of fascinating. And we're also establishing right now that she, Dr. Jones, can look upon the Medusan without going crazy.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, a little blue substance there. Could be Romulan ale, but it's not.
Yeah. And we also got sort of an indication that Spock's Vulcan half makes it a little easier for him to interact with the Medusan the way that he did.
Yes. And we also established also on the same lines that no one has ever established or achieved the mind link with a Medusan. So a little bit of a reference to the Vulcan mind powers there.
Yeah. And we're getting everybody's dress uniforms here.
Yeah, I love these dress uniforms.
Yeah.
And if you notice that Dr. Jones, her outfit is different, but she has the same mesh with jewels on it draped over.
Yeah, and we'll learn later that that's a big plot point.
Yeah, and that she was born a telepath.
Yeah.
And that she spent time on Vulcan, and they taught her some of the Vulcan mental disciplines.
Yeah.
How cool is that? So it's not just Vulcans that are able to do these things. Other races are also able to pick up and study the Vulcan ways.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. We didn't know that before. So I like that. And we see that there's also Spock has an insignia that he's wearing called the Vulcan IDIC. This is the first appearance of that symbol. And it was kind of a controversial thing. I'm not sure if you knew that.
No, I did not.
Apparently, the Vulcan IDIC symbol was developed by Gene Roddenberry, who wanted to sell it as a merchandise item through his Lincoln Enterprises company. And the actors of the show, specifically Shatner and Nimoy, were not happy about that. And that caused that caused Roddenberry to lessen the impact of that insignia in the actual episode. So apparently, in an original draft of the script, maybe this is something we can talk to Mark Cushman about, or will be in the season 3 book. There will be what was an expanded role of that Vulcan symbol.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So this is interesting that we've got several Enterprise crew members hitting on Dr. Jones.
Yes.
And her soon-to-be known as suitor is not exactly happy with that.
No.
So that would be Larry. Larry, the guy in the interesting-looking uniform that we've never seen before. You know, this is something that stood out to me, too, about this episode, that we've seen many, many episodes of Star Trek where they recycle uniforms.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen the jumpsuits from the Devil in the Dark reused many, many times over. But this guy has a unique uniform.
Yeah.
That was obviously made for the show, and I don't recall ever seeing it again.
No.
So, interesting.
Yeah. And that's actor David Frankham, born in 1926. And in addition to Star Trek, he had guest appearances on Gomer Pyle, USMC, The Beverly Hillbillies, The Outer Limits, and The Waltons.
Wow, he's been around too.
Yeah, and I guess we should talk about Dr. Jones here.
Sure, why not?
Diana Muldaur, born in 1938. And she was on The Incredible Hulk twice.
I remember that.
In the third season, she played David Banner's sister, and she played a nun on the fifth season. She also won 2 Emmys for her work on LA Law as Rosalind Shays. I think a lot of people from our listening audience might remember her as Dr. Pulaski on Next Generation.
Yes, sir.
And she was also the first female president of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences from 1983 to 1985.
Spectacular. It's great achievement.
Yeah.
Great achievement.
Yeah, I am going to shamefully admit I had not made the Next Generation connection.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay. You made it now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was more of a crusher. A lot of the Next Gen episodes I watched were crusher, so
Really?
I'm not sure when Pulaski worked her way in.
Well, I've been called out on my fandom of Pulaski over Crusher on Facebook. So I've said enough. I've said my piece. But at any rate, I just to mention really quickly something that we missed, and that's a crucial plot point here, is that Kirk knows of the Medusans' talent for navigation in space, and he mentioned the fact that he would love to have Ambassador Kalos help to solve or have a Medusan navigator to help solve some of their quote-unquote navigation problems, of which we didn't know anything prior to this episode. But interesting. And we also know that Scotty is taking Larry under his wing and offering him some of that fine scotch that he's got back in engineering. So Scotty's still offering people booze.
Yeah.
So good on him. And apparently Dr. McCoy is a little bit disturbed by Dr. Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't get a lot of insight into it yet, but he detects something a little bit off about her. So we'll find out more a little bit.
Now, when you watch this for the first time, the shot where we see her talking to Kolos and he reveals himself without her blinders on, if you will, how did you take that?
Well, I if I remember correctly, I thought that she had some sort of some discipline that she developed. But once you get the reveal later in the show, all of the prior context makes sense.
Yeah.
And I have to say, and I don't want to spoil it right now, but she's fantastic. When you realize when the reveal comes out, you realize how talented of an actress she really is.
Oh, yeah.
If you go back and watch it, there are so many subtle little hints throughout the beginning of the episode that you say, I should have known.
Yeah.
But you didn't know. So spectacular acting on her part. And
right, yeah.
Before we move too far past it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you if you noticed this. During that scene in the dining room there, after their dinner was over, I was kind of struck by the fact that there were so many references made to going to sleep and good night. I don't remember hearing that many references to sleeping or saying good night to people on Star Trek prior to this episode.
Yeah, you know what? That's an excellent point that I hadn't noticed until you just pointed it out, but it's definitely notable.
Yeah, so many references were made to it, it just stood out to me. So, at any rate, anybody in the audience who wants to talk about that more, let us know on Facebook, and we'd love to talk to you. And we just saw poor Larry get zero reaction to his kiss attempt, so little friend zone action there.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
We've all been there.
Oh.
We've all been there. Poor Larry.
Yeah. And now she sort of read his mind and saw that he has plans to possibly kill Kolos.
Well, who could blame him?
Yeah.
Who could blame him? Kolos is stealing his girl.
Yeah.
What better reason to kill somebody? Now, we've seen it many times in many plots and many stories. And I love how he just kind of turns her out. And he says, you know what? You know, you're psychoanalyzing me. You're a great psychologist. And why don't you try being a woman for a change?
Whoa.
Oof. What does that mean, being a woman? What does that mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. But
that almost seems like advanced, like, you know how they have that, like, those seminars you can take on how to run game and stuff. You know, that seems like he was definitely negging her there, you know, as they say.
For sure. You know, this episode is fantastic for these hallway shots.
Yeah.
Now, that's clearly a handheld shot, But
yeah, this is pre-Steadicam, yeah.
yeah, but that's really great. You see the perspective of walking down a hallway on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
And I think the jittery handheld nature actually kind of makes it more realistic.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So great. I really love that. And you'll see a few more. And you'll also see some use of some fisheye in this episode, which is really strange for Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
So a question for you.
Okay, I love questions.
Why is Larry allowed to walk around armed? He's not an Enterprise crew member. He's got a phaser, though?
Yeah.
That seems a little questionable to me. You know, usually you would think that if you were a guest on the Enterprise, you would not be allowed to walk around armed.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe he got it from like a Foolish Red shirt or...
I mean, off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Larry tries to assassinate Kolos, but fails and is driven insane
Yeah.
by the sight of Kolos and the green flashing lights. Another great hallway shot.
Yeah.
Look at that. That is exceptionally cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It's a really long shot down the hallway, and you can see Dr. Jones like way in the distance there.
Yeah, even really good lighting there, too.
Oh, very dramatic, very cool. And here she is discovering the phaser and the murder attempt. And, did Kolos open up the cat carrier in order to drive him crazy to protect himself?
I think so.
Yeah. Because you would think he would just stay closed and be impervious to being shot by the phaser. Another great hallway shot of Kirk and company walking down a hallway. And I'll tell you, whoever the cameraman was there had a real steady hand for walking backwards. I didn't see a dolly track anywhere.
No, you're not seeing dolly. Yeah, and it's almost 10 years away from a Steadicam.
Yeah, so good on you, cameraman, whoever you were. Very, very, very steady shot.
So we learned that the ambassador is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and she's outing Larry Marvick as the murderer or potential murderer, which is, she's selling him out after she knows how in love with her he is. So I guess that says something. She's not attached to him enough. And here's another questionable move. So Scotty just lets anybody mess with the controls for the Enterprise?
Yeah, as we get this red alert.
Yeah, Kirk, I mean, wow. On a ship-wide broadcast, Kirk just completely calls Marvick out. You know, you would think Marvick could hear everything that was going on in that message. You would think it would be kind of a tip-off that they were looking for him.
Yeah.
Right? But, and I guess his insanity gives him kind of super strength.
Yeah.
Look at that camera angle.
It's great.
Him bashing Scotty's head into the floor. We don't see camera angles like that in Trek.
Yeah.
And I don't think we see him in any other episode. So what happened? And look at this angle on the bridge. I don't, this is so strange to me that we're getting all of this bizarre camera work. Was there somebody involved in this episode that was not involved in other episodes that we should be talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if Sineski just knew that maybe this was his last gig and he was going to do all the things that he wasn't able to do on previous episodes, and maybe with the new producer and, the studio or the network not really caring about the show.
Yeah, maybe. That's something that we should probably ask Mark Cushman about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure maybe there'll be some mention in the book about it. So I once again, we're seeing some working in these compartments underneath the bridge consoles, but actually on the right-hand side of the bridge this time, or left hand if you're coming in from the turbo lift. That's the side that we rarely see. I love how this guy, Larry's just kind of sitting there messing with controls. Like he knows how to fly the ship.
Yeah.
That's kind of strange. And I love how it takes all these guys to wrestle him down. And once again, we're seeing what I think is supposed to be the quote-unquote Great Barrier.
Yeah.
At the edge of the galaxy, right? We've seen it in prior episodes. We see it again in Star Trek V. And we've breached it once again. So I don't know why it's so intimidating in Star Trek V. We breached it twice. Or 3 times, I think, by the end of the original series, I think they go through it again in The Way to Eden, don't they?
Possibly, yeah.
I'm pretty sure the space hippies have to go to that forbidden planet in order to fulfill their hippie destiny. But yeah. Oh man! But once again, we're seeing the insanity give Larry some strength. But moment of clarity when he sees Miranda. Kind of calms down a little bit. Huh.
Now, do you think the Medusan, that is the human word for that race?
Yeah, that's another one of those terms that I kind of raised an eyebrow at, but just kind of had to let go. So we all know Medusa and who Medusa was. And but her gaze turned you to stone as opposed to turning you insane, but similar. Ill effect by gazing, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm a big Medusa fan.
Really, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. You never saw the Medusa that I had that artist do for me?
No, you know what? I don't know if I did.
Yeah, you might not have been at the convention. I ran across a local or a guy from Boston actually, and he was doing quick drawings, and I said, hey, I've had a really hard time finding a Medusa. Could you do Medusa for me? So
oh, neat.
I might have been at that convention with my brother. Next time you're over, it's hanging up in my living room.
Yeah, I got to check that out.
But Medusa is such a fascinating story because she was extremely beautiful, and then she was sort of cursed with this, turning people to stone when they looked at her. It's a really cool story. It's probably my favorite, Greek myth.
Fascinating. I always loved the Medusa sequence in Clash of the Titans.
Oh my God, how great! I mean it's that great Ray Harryhausen stop motion,
spectacular.
And Medusa, it just looks great. She moves great. Just Clash of the Titans. I watched that movie within the last year. I've watched it, and
it holds up.
I love that movie.
Yeah, it holds up. But we digress.
Yeah.
Into another topic. We are apparently the ship has gone faster than warp 9.5 and has breached the space-time continuum and is now beyond the boundaries of the galaxy. So I'm going to take that as flying through the Great Barrier once again. So we've done it twice so far.
Yeah, and we also learned that Larry has died.
Larry died of insanity.
Yeah, he could not deal with what he saw.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad. He didn't deserve it. He was just a guy in love.
Well, yeah, he was going to murder somebody, though.
That was an ugly alien. Come on, man.
Come on. Ugly aliens have a right to live.
But the ugly alien was stealing his girlfriend. If you're going to kill, you might as well kill for a good reason, like love.
You know what they say? There's plenty of fish in the sea, and that's, they say that here on Earth, where there's a couple billion people.
Yeah.
In the Star Trek future, there's plenty of fish in the galaxy.
Yeah, I don't know about that, man. There may be less. You may have access to less. If you're stationed on a ship like this, you got all the chicks on the ship and whoever you meet at the starbase. I mean, they got interstellar Tinder going on.
I don't know. And also, you could pretty much reinvent yourself at every stop.
Yeah, you get your game, work up your game, have different stories. You're a lawyer one stop, you're a surgeon at the next stop.
Yeah, you can be mysterious. So I don't know. I think I don't excuse his attempted murder there.
No, I'm going to excuse it. We got to have opposed viewpoints to make the show interesting. But interesting, we're seeing right now. We just saw the explanation of a heretofore unknown Vulcan mind power. And that is the fusion or the mind link, the fusion of two minds. So you and another being are kind of giving each other permission to access the memories and abilities of the other and kind of form one being.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen that before. That's a brand new thing as far as I know. We've seen mind melds before, but we haven't seen Spock link his mind with someone else's mind and allow that person to control his body. Now, we did see an alien entity completely change places with Spock. So remove Spock's mentality and insert its own.
Yeah.
But so this is kind of a new Vulcan power.
But are we ever going to see it again?
Good question. I don't know. I don't remember ever seeing it again. But we might.
The only thing I thought that was close to it is sort of in The Wrath of Khan when he sort of does that memory dump with McCoy. But that's a different quote unquote technology.
Yeah, it's kind of like a half way of doing it. He's kind of transferring himself into somebody else's brain.
Yeah, he's just using McCoy really as an external drive.
Yeah, McCoy's the USB flash drive. Just like warp 9.5 is 88 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
But
so I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about that power at the end of the episode when we talk about the essential nature of the episode.
Oh, you know me so well. Here's that atrium again, or the arboretum, by the way, that was seen in And the Children Shall Lead.
Yeah.
That was developed for Elan of Troyes, but did not actually wind up being featured in Elan of Troyes. Wound up on the cutting room floor, appeared in this episode and in The Children Shall Lead.
Yeah, so good on them for getting some dividends from it anyway.
Yeah, budget, man, budget. And once again, I love how we see Kirk using the love angle. You know, he constantly throughout the series uses that whole I need to teach you or make you aware of love in order to talk you out of something or talk you into something or distract you from something.
Yeah.
You know, this episode, I think, kind of relies quite a bit on Kirk's interstellar suave. You know, he used it earlier during the dinner sequence where he was kind of romancing Dr. Jones a little bit. It just made me think of the whole No Time for Love Dr. Jones from Temple of Doom. But anyway.
So this is really all, though, just a distraction, though.
Yes. To
allow Spock to do the mind link.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's some sinister forces at play here.
There are. And I love how he just, it's completely okay for him to just, grab her hand and kind of touch her shoulder. And I don't know. And here's another question, since you love questions.
Yeah.
Kirk just asked it. Kirk has never seen a Medusan firsthand. How does he know they're ugly?
Their reputation.
But he doesn't really know for sure. I mean, he's never seen it. How does he know that they're actually ugly?
Yeah.
You know, opinions are different. You know, a woman that you find attractive, I might find unattractive, and vice versa. You know, it's not one size fits all kind of thing. And you think in the future where, you know, we see all sorts of alien races. Kirk has seen all sorts of things. He's seen the Horta. He's seen the Gorn. He's seen everything. How does he know that he would consider the Medusan ugly?
Yeah. But you know what? I don't think ugliness is subjective. I think there is definitely a difference between what people find attractive, but there are people that I guess could find or be attracted to, you know, a quote unquote ugly type.
Yeah, but to them, they're not ugly. They're attractive. It's different.
No, see, but I don't know. For me, there's a definite line between attractive and beautiful or ugly, and I don't think that they're necessarily the same thing.
Well, I would debate you endlessly on this, but I don't know if we have enough time.
It's been determined that there is a standard of beauty that is accepted.
Well, a standard of beauty defined by who? You know, it's not something that you're born with. It's something that's given to you as a learned behavior. You know, you don't come out of the womb thinking things are ugly or beautiful. You learn what to think is ugly and beautiful. Or you decide for yourself later on. But the definition of beauty versus ugly is not something that's completely universal. Not in my mind, not in my lifetime either.
Yeah.
You know, there have been things that I think are, look at artwork. There are certain works of art that I think are horrible, but that other people think are the most beautiful things they've ever seen. And vice versa. There's artwork that I think is great that other people think are heinous or ugly or terrible. So I don't know. I don't know if I can completely agree with you, but
yeah, it definitely seems like this could be a a side podcast of another podcast.
Yeah.
That isn't the Tricorder Transmissions.
Yeah, we should move on because we just
yeah, we got a pretty major moment happening here.
Yeah, McCoy just called Dr. Jones out on her blindness. So that's how she's able to look upon the Medusan and not go crazy. She is completely sightless, and McCoy picked up on it. But nobody else did. Not even Spock.
Yeah.
So fantastic. And now when you know that fact, and look at how she's tearing up. Look at all the rest of this episode that has happened prior to this, and now all of the little nuance that she's been including in her portrayal of this character makes sense. She's actually portrayed a blind character very, very convincingly, but still given us clues that we could have picked up on the whole time.
Oh yeah, totally.
Oh, that is such an impressive acting job in my mind, and I think that this episode really showcases great acting on the parts of several of these actors and actresses that are in this episode.
Yeah, and I like here how Kirk is really taking the hard line on saying, you know, we're in a situation here where this mind link between Spock and Kolos needs to happen, and we're not going to discuss it.
Yeah,
you know,
the first in several fantastic Shatner moments in this episode. So we're going to see several more of them. One in particular that's coming up soon. That's really great. But one thing else I wanted to mention is that they just also revealed that the that overlay that she's wearing over top of her dress is a sensor array that allows her to act as if she is a sighted person. So much like Geordi LaForge's visor that allows him to see, that sensor array that she wears allows her to see things. She was talking about how she can gauge exact distances, like between her and the door and her and Captain Kirk, just by her mental connection to this outfit that she wears. And that's some really cool technology.
Yeah, it's like a Daredevil suit.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that that's a really cool example of some forward thinking in the writing of this episode and how cool some of this technology is. And we don't even have that yet. I mean, some of the technology in Trek has come true already, but that we don't quite have yet.
Yeah, although we are sort of there are cars now coming out with proximity sensors.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're getting there.
Yeah, and there's have you seen those like digital tape measures?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, where you basically, this is like mainly for like measuring distances like in a room or something. You hold it against the wall and you shoot it to the next wall and it'll tell you exactly how far it is.
Oh, that's neat.
So you don't need somebody to go and hold it for you.
Very awesome. Just they set up a little cubicle for Spock there.
Yeah, and he makes the mind link, and this is some great acting between from Nimoy here, because he is actually Kolos is seeing through Spock's eyes.
Yeah, this is a wonderful bit of acting by Nimoy here. I really love this whole sequence. I love when Nimoy gets the chance to not be Spock.
Yeah,
and be something else. We've seen it before, like in was it This Side of Paradise, where he had the spores and he was kind of like, fell in love, and he was almost like human Spock, and I really enjoyed that. And when he was inhabited by the alien spirit and consciousness, that was really great too. So
yeah, and he just pointed out there that Uhura's name translates to freedom. Yeah,
really great observation.
Yeah, and it's funny because McCoy instantly says that's not Spock.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple of jabs or back and forth between McCoy and Spock in this episode. We saw one earlier in the dining room scene, and we see this other one here. And this is a really great connection. So we're seeing Kolos really connecting with Miranda Jones here, and you really get to understand now that Kolos wasn't able to speak prior to this. It was all like a mental telepathy or a telepathic link that allowed them to speak to each other. Now he can actually verbalize his connection to Miranda, and you get to understand there is some sort of a deep bond between the two of them.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So the whole mind link was needed so Kolos could pilot them out of the situation they're in.
Yeah, I really love that it's the fusion of Kolos and Spock. So you have Kolos's navigational prowess fused with Spock's ability to pilot the ship. So neither one could do it on their own, but they're doing it together as one unit.
Yeah, what's that term? The sum is better than the whole of its parts.
Wow. Excellent. Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I think I got that from the X-Men comic book when I was a kid.
Well, that's okay. Wherever you got it from, it works fine here. So once again, I think we're looking at the Great Barrier, the remastered shot of what we know as the Great Barrier. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Star Trek V, especially as they get a little bit closer to it.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if they took inspiration from Star Trek V to kind of make that connection. The remastered, there it is.
Yeah.
That purple ribbon.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah. Great hero shot there for Kirk, too, standing so stoically as they flew through it. And a couple of short lines by Chekhov. He didn't get many lines in this episode. But apparently, Kolos's calculations were so good that he's perfectly spot on to where they left from.
Yeah. And it's great. Chekhov's very, very impressed.
As he should be. And poor Sulu, who has really nothing to do in this episode, kind of meanders back in. And, go ahead.
I was going to say, I saw Sulu or George Takei in the Green Berets on Veterans Day. It was
awesome.
On, I think, AMC they showed it. And I actually caught a scene with George. So
that's great.
It's kind of neat watching him in a non-Sulu. Because admittedly, I haven't really seen a lot of his non-Star Trek work.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of it either. More great acting in this tight close-up.
Yeah, and this is where
Nimoy.
Yeah, where Kolos realizes, it's not so great being in this, these receptacles that we call our bodies.
No, and I love the fact that he points out language.
Yeah,
and the usefulness of language, because if you really think about it, that is one major thing that separates us from other animal species, on this planet, is that we have the ability to verbally communicate very intricate ideas and concepts to each other.
Yeah,
and that's what makes us able to do so many things that we've done and develop the things we've developed and build the things we've built. The ability to speak and read and write and communicate is fundamental to human existence. So for an alien who's never experienced that to talk about it like that and kind of illustrate to us that it's something that we should treasure and make flagrant use of is great. Spock
didn't have his visor.
Yeah, Spock's not using. Great acting by Shatner, and great restraint too.
Yeah,
great restraint by Captain Kirk, and a wonderful fade to commercial. One of the better ones, I think.
Yeah, and I guess this is where we assume this is the last episode with Spock, as he's going to go mad and
look at that. And Shatner and Kirk commands everybody not to help Spock. Don't move. Stay still. Don't go over there. When his first instinct would obviously cool Spock is kind of backing away, and we can obviously see the pain on his face by the alien, and unfortunately, he was not able to survive completely unscathed. Great fisheye lens effect. And interesting that they're able to do this fisheye camera, first-person perspective camera angle on Spock fighting. So you see like a double axe handle thrown by Spock, knocking some security guys away from Spock's actual perspective. Kind of cool. And then, of course, Shatner has to rely on Miranda and her knowledge of the Vulcan ways to restore, or hopefully restore, Spock's sanity. She's kind of in sickbay alone with Spock, which is kind of odd that McCoy wouldn't want to be in there with her.
Yeah.
And Kirk is making a likening that Spock is her rival, and McCoy is trying to, allay Kirk's fears by saying that, Spock won't be a murderous, insane person or Vulcan as Larry was, because he was driven mad by his love for Dr. Jones, where Spock doesn't have that same love or that passion to make him do the same things.
Right.
So, oh, very cool too. Look, on the left-hand side, you can see that Miranda has taken off her sensor array for some reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't know who came into the room.
Yeah.
So I guess the sensor array on that garment that she wears can identify people as well.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. That's a pretty cool tech.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, I love the technology that they develop in this. Now, this scene to me is just a wonderful display of acting by both of them. I think Shatner is fantastic in this scene. I mean, he's really kind of laying down the scenario to her and really communicating to her, the difference between, what she wants to do to Spock and what she should be doing. So, and the physicality of the scene, he's just calling her out.
Yeah.
On everything. Like, obviously he's kind of accusing her of manipulating Spock's mind so that he wouldn't put the goggles back on, that he would see Kalos and go insane so she could get Spock out of the way. And she's still, through this entire thing, playing the blind person. The way that she's directing her eyes and the motion of her eyes is spectacular. So this to me is an incredible scene that really shows the seriousness and the gravity of Trek and the acting craft that really runs through the heart of this show.
Oh, yeah.
And Nimoy pretends he's asleep the whole time. Good on Nimoy. They have the restraints on his arms, too. You can barely see them, but they're there on the arms and the legs to keep him from freaking out. But
and I like how Kirk sort of regrets how far he went.
Yeah, and he looks visibly tired by this scenario, doesn't he? It looks like he's actually really affected by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But whatever he did, whatever he said, it was enough to convince her that she needs to do the right thing here. And I love the fact that she spent so much time on Vulcan and learned techniques enough that she can perform this operation or this method as well as a Vulcan would have. So that kind of goes to show, it proves out the fact that you don't have to be a Vulcan to learn how to do those things. You may have to have some telepathic abilities, but you don't have to be of the Vulcan race.
Yeah.
So more fisheye stuff here.
Yeah, real trippy sequence. I'm sure the editor had a lot of fun here.
Yeah, this is a lot of quick jump cut edits. A lot of scissor editing going on here, but we don't see this in Trek very often either.
No.
So this episode houses a lot of very interesting camera and editing techniques that we don't normally see. And this is a really interesting almost a double mind meld. They have hands on each other, and I don't know exactly what she's doing to Spock here. It's not really clear.
Yeah.
What she's doing, but I guess she's attempting to reach that Vulcan part of his mind and assert its dominance over the human side and somehow sanitize him in a way. And we see that he's actually saved. So it's very cool that she would be able to turn around based on Kirk's speech.
Yeah.
Another great hallway camera angle. And look how the Medusan ship has Federation-style nacelles on the outside of it.
Yeah.
Very interesting choice by the remastered graphics creators.
Yeah.
So we resolved, and Kalos and Dr. Jones are now leaving the ship, and not before Kirk gets in a couple of last poignant lines here. And I really love this exchange, by the way, where Kirk hands her the rose, and she says, "I suppose it has thorns," and Kirk says, "I've never known a rose that didn't."
Yeah.
So that's wonderful writing, very thought-provoking, actually. That after everything they've been through on this episode, that he can kind of wish her well on her way and her journey that she's about to undertake with Kalos.
Yeah.
And we get a live long and prosper from Spock, which we don't actually hear that often in the original series.
True.
Something that became more of a staple later on. But cool that we get to hear it. And before we sign off, a couple of footnotes about this episode, unless you have something else you want to talk about first.
No, go for it.
This episode marks the famous Eddie Paskey's final appearance in the original series.
Okay.
And it's also the last episode to feature a question mark in the title.
Oh.
Yeah.
Some good trivia there.
Yeah. So that's a couple of endpoints in an early part of the third season, which I guess leads us to our essential voting.
Yeah, and then the you know what why the visor might have gone on? Because when they transport, you're actually seeing through the container.
Oh, perhaps. Yeah, that'd be a good. That's a good observation.
Yeah. All right. So essential. I'm gonna come right out, Jeff, and say, unless you can convince me otherwise, I don't really see anything in this episode that makes it essential.
All right. Well, I'm not going to attempt to convince you that it's essential, but I will say that I'm going to give this episode an essential vote. Not going to go out of my way to try to change your mind, but I think that this episode explores a lot about the Vulcan ways and Vulcan mind powers. We get a new mind power that may or may not be reused at some point, be it the novels or other series where you can join two minds and two beings can act as one through one or both of the other beings. And we also get to know that a non-Vulcan is capable and can be taught the Vulcan ways, which up until now we've always thought and been led to believe that only Vulcans were able to use these powers, the mind meld and the nerve pinch and all those other sorts of things. But now we know that you can be a Terran or other being and just have some psychic abilities and be able to use Vulcan powers as long as you study and are trained in the arts. So I think, to me, that's enough backstory and insight into the Vulcan ways and the Vulcan mind powers to make this, for me, in my world, be essential. This is stuff that I think enhances my knowledge of the Vulcan race and Spock.
All right, fair enough. And I like I said, I defer to you here, and I'm not gonna hold it against it. So I will say, based on your argument or your reasoning, that this is an essential episode.
Well, we can also use some of the great acting moments to supplement.
Sure. Yeah.
So great character moments for Kirk and Spock, and a couple of minor McCoy moments. But
right on.
All right, so we got a double essential vote for this episode, and we will catch up with all you guys out there next week for our next commentary episode. And in the meantime, drop us a note on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll be around. And drop us a note on Twitter too if you want to, and check out our website at tricordertransmissions.com. We have a forum there as well. So
right
Craig, any closing thoughts from you?
No, I will see you next week.
All right, take it easy, everybody.
The episode title, Is There in Truth No Beauty, originated from an author named George Herbert, an English metaphysical poet and an Anglican priest. In his 1633 book titled The Temple, there exists the phrase, "Is there in truth no beauty?" Someone at Star Trek must have liked obscure poetry. They say that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Well, behold this episode. Though we actually never get to see one of our main characters, we experience him through the senses and perceptions of others. It's those senses and those perceptions which both ask and answer the question, is there in truth no beauty?
The show was considered a flop after the first 3 years, and we struggled to keep that thing on the air. But finally, when they put it in at Friday nights, I believe, at 10 p.m., Gene knew as soon as he got that message that it was a no-go. We had gone down to Palm Springs, as a matter of fact, and he had taken 8 shows with him. And he said, I'm going to make this the best season that Star Trek ever had, and we're going to stay on forever. Well, we no sooner get down there than he gets a call from NBC who says, Gene, baby. Well, at that point, you know you're in trouble. He says, we've got a great spot for you. We're going to change you. I guess it was from Monday or Tuesday at 8 p.m., which would have been perfect, of course, into Friday nights at 10 p.m. And Gene knew, now that's just slightly better than 2 a.m. Sunday morning, for heaven's sakes. I mean, our people are out that night. They're young marrieds. They're college professors. They have been working all week. They don't stay home to watch a television show. The only person home on Friday nights at 10 p.m. is going to be Aunt Maud in Iowa. Now, she's not going to watch our show if we produce it for her live. It was just the terrible, terrible time slot. And Gene gave up. We picked up all the scripts like this, and home we came.
A war broke out behind the scenes over all things a medallion, a medal of honor known as the IDIC, which stands for Infinite Diversity from Infinite Combinations, was to be bestowed on a lucky recipient, but it had nothing to do with the storyline. Producer Fred Reiber fought with Gene Roddenberry, who saw the medallion as the beginnings of mass merchandising of more Star Trek paraphernalia. He initially wanted Kirk to wear the medallion, but after I refused, he worked on Leonard Nimoy, who ended up wearing it, and believe me, he was none too pleased about the situation.
You may have noticed the medallion that Spock wears periodically throughout this episode is called the IDIC, and it stands for Infinite Diversity in Infinite Combinations. It's a noble idea that unfortunately arose from not so noble beginnings. During the making of this episode, there was a scene that I had with Diana Muldaur that I wasn't happy with. I felt it needed a rewrite, and I contacted Gene, who was at MGM at the time, in hopes that he might step in and help. He wrote a scene in which he introduced the IDIC. He created the IDIC so that his marketing company could manufacture and sell these medallions to Star Trek fans. Although making money seemed to be a thing of the past in the 23rd century, it was quite apparent how important it still was in 1968.
This was not the first time that a humanoid falls in love with an alien. Think of the Companion and Zephram Cochrane in Metamorphosis, and Sarek the Vulcan and Amanda of Earth in Journey to Babel. Minds can be attracted to each other without regard to physical differences. If it were only that simple, perhaps there's a lesson here.
One of the more interesting ideas in this episode is the sensor web dress that Dr. Jones wears to hide her blindness. Although it seemed far-fetched at the time, scientists are now in the process of developing very similar technologies to give eyesight to the blind. Researchers have been experimenting with miniature cameras that can feed signals directly into the brain through the optical nerves. It's just one more example of Star Trek predicting a future that has come to pass.